Good
Hi, Jen.
morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you today?
Good.
You have been busy. It is 7:30 in the morning and you are already up and at 'em today.
Yes, and to be frank with you, both my wife and I have been up since 4. So
Oh, hey, I have been too. So it's
okay,
all good.
makes me feel good. We're on the same page.
We are. We are. I'm already on the second cup of coffee, so we're good. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate this. It's an honor to have you on the show. And thank you for your service to the United States. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be with you.
It was less than 12 hours ago. You were speaking about public safety. You were in the 12 News Forum last night. And I have to tell you, I got a kick out of it only because to me, as an observer watching it, when you had to leave and Katie Hobbs came on, it felt like a pageant, where they lock the girls up in the silent room and then they ask them a question, the others can't hear them, and this and that. Why did you have to leave?
I am not even permitted to stay here when my opponent is going to give her speech. I don't get that, but that's okay. That's okay.
Why weren't you able to stay on that stage last night with Katie Hobbs?
Well, uh, Katie Hobbs does not want to debate me. She doesn't. So normally in that forum, you would have the MC, the moderator, and on each side there'd be a chair for one for Hobbs, one for Biggs. But what she did is she basically insisted that she didn't have to be in the same room with me at any time. So Jen, here's the weird part about it. So um, I did my little shtick, and I didn't realize they were going to make me leave the room, and go to the back to the green room. Okay, and so when I saw that during dinner, I went up and I said, "Hey, look, what does this mean? What are you telling me? I got to get out of here because she can't handle being in the same room with me. What's the deal?" They said, "Yeah, you got to leave." And I said, "Well, this really isn't much of a forum. I mean, we're not even together on stage. She's afraid to be in the same room with me." And so here's the other part that people probably don't realize. While I was on the stage, and you probably saw this, they've said multiple times, both candidates will receive the same questions. Well, in her green room, it was being live streamed, so she could watch and hear every question ahead of time, which I didn't get. And so she got every question ahead of time and was able to go in there with some very scripted answers, which makes me wonder how this all worked. But and then after it was over, she didn't come to the pre ceremony or pre forum mixer either. And so it was me and Sina Kerr, my running mate, and then her running mate John Giles was there, but she didn't show up. She just I guess what happens, Jen, this is my take on it. When you're telling lies so much about me, and you know they're lies because she's known me a long time. My guess is maybe if she has a conscience, that her conscience won't let her be in the same room and see me face to face because she knows she's not telling the truth. That's one of the reasons I figure that maybe that happens. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, look at it. I mean, just, it's a room full of police officers, okay? You're gonna be safe. You're gonna be safe. It's the safest space there is. So even if you believe all the crap you're saying about me, you know that there's cops there. I just couldn't believe it. It was so childish.
So it wasn't a beauty pageant. She got to hear the questions. I, you know, I feel that the people are really going to miss out by not seeing a debate. And this is my personal opinion, but I watch debates because I want to know a person's personality. I want to know how they think on their feet. Is this just absolutely not going to happen in this election?
No, it's not going to happen. And the biggest joke of all was when they announced last night, this is, since she's not going to debate, this is the only time you'll have the two candidates. And then they couldn't even say on stage together. They couldn't say in the same room together. This is the only time you're going to have the two candidates in the same building together, I guess. So no, there'll be no debate. And oh my gosh, it's mind blowing to me.
Well, it seems like this campaign is getting a little bit nastier. Yesterday, the video came out, the red line video came out.
GOP lawmakers now accusing him of turning a blind eye to child abuse.
I apologize for reading my notes, but I want to make sure that I get this absolutely accurate. That's really important to me. So the new video accuses you of blocking House Bill 2648. This was almost 15 years ago. It was a bipartisan bill aimed at addressing serious concerns about the Colorado City Marshal's Office. Now, that bill passed in the House 52-7. But then you are being accused of blocking it from even being able to go up for a vote in the Senate.
Mr. Biggs refused to bring forward a bipartisan bill that would have done something to eliminate the marshals as the sole law enforcement and the implementers of the tyranny of Warren Jeffs.
I wasn't concerned that we were going to actually bury stuff. Did we have enough as a state to step in? I don't know.
This is a very serious issue, obviously. The video is backed by Copper State Victory, the Navajo County Democrat Committee, and Katie Hobbs' name is on this as well. First of all, I want to ask you, what do you think about the video that came out? What did you know at the time? And looking back, would you have done anything differently?
Well, first of all, the people who sponsored this are out-of-state money. That's what this is. Katie Hobbs has already spent all of her money. So everything you've seen in the last probably 6 weeks to 8 weeks is coming from out of state. That's out-of-state money. Second thing is, in this particular bill, there's a reason. So I did what every Senate president is required to do. The bill came over, and within 5 days, I actually assigned it to a committee, and it didn't go anywhere. But I'm sure I struggled with that bill at the time, and I probably expressed it. But here's the thing: with that bill, first of all, since that time, I've voted on 25,000 bills, and my record's pretty darn clear about protecting women and children. But at the time, I said, look, I don't have a problem with decertifying the law enforcement department of Colorado City, but I would ask people to read the bill, because when you read the bill, you come to realize something, that the parameters of that bill would have put every police department in the state of Arizona in jeopardy if you ever had a rogue AG, which we happen to have a rogue AG right now, because the bill was not narrowly crafted. It was overly broad. And that meant that the city of Phoenix, which has thousands of police officers, so believe me, you're going to meet the threshold that they put in there. Guess what? They're going to be decertified. And that's the reason that the Fraternal Order of Police opposed it. It wasn't just Andy Biggs that said, oh man, we want to protect these people, which is how they're couching it, that Biggs was trying to protect people. That's not it. Biggs was saying, why does the Fraternal Order of Police oppose this bill? Well, because every police department in the state of Arizona would have been in danger of being decertified. And the bill was overly broad. There was no move to amend it. They wouldn't, and I don't know what happened with whether they considered to amendment, but that's really all I kind of remember about that, is that you had some bills that was overly broad, and if you would have narrowed it and crafted it so it'd be narrow, then we would have let it go. And my guess is I suggested to the Senate people that maybe we should see if there's an amendment possible. But the bottom line is, They're asking me some very specific questions about something that happened ages ago, and then they will, and that's all I can tell you is that it was overly broad. The FOP opposed it. I wasn't alone in opposing it. Yet you had 7 Republicans in the House oppose it. I have no control over the House members. The reality is, it was a poorly crafted bill that had massive unintended consequences. And, you know, maybe if I looked at it again, maybe I would insist that they offer an amendment to make the corrections, but maybe I didn't, and it just didn't happen. I can't remember. I mean, there's a lot of water that's come under that bridge since then.
Let's talk about public safety. I know this is a very big issue for you. Last night, you made it very clear that you support law enforcement and what they do. I support law enforcement, so the questions that I'm asking are not anti-police by any means. I have great respect for the men and women who serve us. Let's start with border security. How many times have you visited the border? What is your stance on border security here in Arizona?
I have been down to the border more times than I can count, just in the last 10 years alone. You know, border patrol agents, retired border patrol agents will tell you that even before I was in Congress, I was down at the border, examining it and making sure that, or just checking it out.
And I always tell people, you're the real congressman for the border patrol agents as a whole. And the reason I say that is, I mean, you say many tours, we say many, I say a lot, whatever it is. We can't put a number because I think we lost count quite some time ago as to how many times you've led and you've been on border tours on the southwest border from Texas all the way to California.
So I'm very familiar with the border. I grew up in southern Arizona, and I won't say my family went down all the time, but we did go down periodically. At one point, my parents were even trying to start a import-export business, and so I had the pleasure of going down to Nogales multiple times. But I've been on the border, all over the border, from San Diego to McAllen. I've taken more people to the border than anybody else in Congress. I'm considered to be one of the top 2 or 3 experts on border security in Congress. And so I know the border very, very well. And our border is in pretty good shape. It's pretty good shape. And Hobbs last night quoted, it's kind of funny because I happen to know this, she quoted one of our sheriffs saying that the border is now manageable. And what that means is, I don't think she knows what that means, but I'll tell you what it means is, it's never been more secure than it is now in my lifetime. But there are places in Cochise County, there are places in Pima County that still lead the nation in drug and human trafficking. And it has to be fixed. And I know, I don't think anybody at the federal level wants me to say that, but I know that the law enforcement in the state, they understand that pretty clearly.
How would you fix that?
So they have to finish putting up the fencing on the Tohono O'odham Reservation. The TOs don't want that there. And so there's a lawsuit that they filed, the Tohono O'odham has filed against the feds. And I don't want to get into the weeds too much, Jen, but I mean, we could talk about where that case is. So the fencing has to be finished going up. And then you have to deal with some fencing issues in Cochise County as well, which is doing really well. But these places, I mean, you can shinny over these fences very easily. I've literally watched them do it. And the way I would settle this, the way I would resolve this, is I would put up the Border Security Task Force. I would make sure that our local law enforcement understands that they have to cooperate by federal law with the federal authorities. If there is a hold, they need to actually hold that person and transfer that person to the federal agencies. And I put a border czar. and the border czar would help coordinate and make sure all of that was in place. And the other thing is, you have to realize something. People need to understand something. The human trafficking and drug trafficking under Joe Biden was so huge. It was a multi-billion per week enterprise for the cartels. And so much money was going over there, and they don't want to give up that money, believe me. And so they're doing everything they can. So if you go to RGV, and I know that's not an Arizona issue, but if you go to the Rio Grande Valley, you're going to find that there are tens of thousands of incursions every day of drones coming over our border. And we have to take care of that. We're not seeing the drones so much. Why? Because we do have those porous parts on the border where they can still keep coming in. And I was talking to a source yesterday that there may be a proposal to reduce the number of ICE agents on the Arizona border. I'm trying to confirm that, but that's the last thing we need. We need to make sure that CBP is there and gets the backup and support that they are. These are men and women that are doing their job and doing a good job. So those 3 or 4 steps that I just mentioned in the greater rambling about the border, those are the first steps, because that's front end steps. Those are front end steps. The back end steps are to make sure that ICE and our local guys are given ICE anybody who's got the hold, so that they can be removed from the country if there's cause.
Here in Arizona, our state government here considers every city in Arizona to be a border city. So when it comes to some of the funding for technology, crime fighting for our local police, that is kind of the criteria in that, is that we're protecting all of the cities here as being border cities. So this is taking me into license plate readers. And I don't know if you're familiar with my reporting. I have been looking into how FLOC has been coming into Arizona cities for several years now. And a lot of that has been with the lack of transparency. So Goodyear, where I live, there were 3 cameras up and running before the council was even told about it. The former city manager said, it's just a picture of the license plate, but there was no description told to the city council about what this technology could really do. I just broke a story a couple weeks ago up in Prescott, 550 pages of documents where the former police chief went to great lengths to make sure that the council and the public did not know about these cameras going in. And then just 2 weeks ago, I broke a story in Avondale where the mayor and the police chief were saying, oh, we have access to a Home Depot and a camera at Home Depot. Well, it's 192 cameras. What is your position on license plate readers? What would you do? Now, last night when I'm watching this forum with Katie Hobbs, she wants to kick it to the cities where each city would be in charge. And that's how this is being run now.
I've seen firsthand how some of this technology is so important to helping our law enforcement do their jobs, solve crimes. I've also heard a lot of the privacy concerns, and we've seen instances where some bad actors have misused technology, and when you see those stories, you understand the privacy concerns. And I think I've been glad to see that in these situations, they've been dealt with by the departments. That needs to continue. I believe the state's role is not telling local communities how to solve crimes, how to deploy technology in their communities, but our job is to put in place guardrails and safeguards so that technology is used responsibly in the right ways, whether that's around training, audits, whatever needs to happen. But it is not our job to tell communities how to enforce their laws. And when we're continuing to see constrained budgets and pressure, fiscal pressure, and we have technology available that helps law enforcement do their job, keep our communities safe, communities should be able to use that technology. And I trust those local officials and leaders to make those decisions.
Thank you.
We do not have a statewide data retention policy. In my research, I'm finding this location data is being kept 2 weeks to a year. Every city has their own policy. I got my flock file. I filed a records request last year. Hundreds and hundreds of photos came back of my vehicles. And the part that was concerning is that the AI got some of those plates wrong. I have other people's plates tied to my data. I can't get it fixed. My city, after that happened, my city shut down records requests that no one else can get their information. And now all of these Arizona cities are adopting that. So is this an issue that the state needs to take over? What are your feelings on this? And really, let's talk about that transparency part of this.
Okay, first of all, I'll just say that, for instance, in Congress, in the House, I am the leader against government surveillance. I've been working on FISA reform for 10 years. We thought we had it a couple years ago. We lost by 1 vote. I work with people from all across the spectrum, some of the most uber leftist people you have, some of the more moderate people, hardcore conservatives. And what we've done is we've actually gone out and tried to stop and curb the FISA abuse.
If you want to spy on Americans, you got to get a warrant. That's not radical. That's not partisan. That is the Constitution. Benjamin Franklin warned that those who trade essential liberty for temporary safety deserve neither. For too long, Washington has done exactly that, traded away constitutional privacy for the illusion of security. We are told that without warrantless surveillance, America will be less safe. That is wrong. We can have both liberty and safety. And it is the government's job to protect both, not force Americans to choose between them. We cannot allow a legacy going to our grandchildren who will then end up growing up in a country where mass surveillance is normal and constitutional protections are optional. Congress has the responsibility right now to stop that future from becoming reality.
And because of our efforts, 2 things. Number one, FISA, and this will get to your transparency, FISA abuse is reportedly down. But we have trouble with transparency, so we're not sure, how accurate the information they're giving us, because they know that I'm watching it constantly. And the same thing is kind of true here with this flock camera issue. I've got conservatives in Congress who say, but Andy, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy with your license plate. And I said, but they're not just reading your license plate. They're accumulating data on you. And that is Big Brother. And you have to understand, and their response, and I'm just giving you the devil's advocate, what they give me for the devil's advocate. They say, well, Andy, a police officer, while they're driving on the road, they can actually type in your license plate and get your MVR, because there's a motor vehicle record that's attached to your plate. And there's no reasonable suspicion, because the courts have basically said that there's no reasonable expectation of privacy while you're driving on a public road with your license plate. But I said, again, the difference is you are accumulating location-based data from this. And now Flock is advertising that you can actually connect your license plate data with your cell phone location data. Now, I want you to think how grasping, how overreaching, how authoritarian that is. And you have, people like Sheriff Teeples down in Pinal County now have said, we're not going to use these because our citizenry doesn't want it. He thinks it oversteps the bounds. I think it clearly oversteps the bounds. And I do think ultimately you're going to have to bring it back to the state, and the state's going to have to say, either say absolutely no flock cameras or absolutely no, because the deal is you have a reasonable expectation of privacy to all of your other data, unless there is a reasonable articulable suspicion to actually begin an investigation and then probable cause to actually accumulate evidence. That's not what's happening here. What they're saying is because you'd have no expectation of privacy because you're in public place with your license plate, then we can go ahead and acquire all this other data. That's not true. So at the bare minimum, the state's going to have to deal with the data acquisition portion. And quite frankly, the easiest way to do that is to say, we're not going to allow flock cameras.
You know, the Fourth Amendment. I think,
Yeah.
look, you know, we want to support our police. We want to give them the tools to do their job. We know that it's very difficult right now to get police hired and to retain them. So obviously, we want to help them every way we possibly can. I think that there's a line there with protecting the rights afforded to us by the United States Constitution, and one of those being the Fourth Amendment. So this warrant requirement it always comes down to this one particular issue about the warrant. Jerry Sheridan had just talked about, by the time you go and get a warrant, the person has already left the area. It's just too difficult for us to be doing that. What are your thoughts on that? Should there be a warrant requirement if this technology is going to continue? What is that piece for you?
So first of all, I love Jerry Sheridan. He's a good friend. He supports me and I support him. And so what I would say is, I get where he's coming from, but this is again, getting back to that FISA analog. I mean, when you look at it, what the argument they're making is, we have to stop these exigent circumstances. And there are exigent circumstances, exceptions to a Fourth Amendment search warrant. And the courts have held that, whether however you view that, but the courts have held certain exigencies will provide an exception so that the officers can prevent illegal disposition of evidence, et cetera. In other words, we don't want them getting thrown away evidence or running away and that type of thing. So you can go after somebody and the evidence. But here what we're talking about is something really very, very different. What you have is with a flock camera, I can be driving down the road. My car is registered. I've got the tab on the back of my plate. I'm driving within the lane. I'm driving within what Arizona law would call reasonable and prudent speed. I'm not a hazard on the roadway. I don't have any mechanical problems with my vehicle. I am just driving down the road. And what the flock camera will do is they'll take your plate, and then they're going to automatically connect it to whatever we've got going on with you. And what my friends and believe me, I love the police. I support the police. I'm with them all the way. But what they'll say is, yes, and sometimes somebody who is driving perfectly has a felony warrant. I get that, but and you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy. So I get what they're saying, but by the same token, how much surveillance do you want? How much surveillance do you think the founders anticipated? How much protection do you think the founders intended to give the citizenry against unwarranted searches, unwarranted seizures? And so while I get it's dicey, I appreciate what my friends are saying. There are other ways to do it. I mean, but there's not this way. This way seems to me to cross the line.
I interviewed Naomi Brockwell, who is a big privacy expert, brilliant, phenomenal. And she explained shifting baselines. So if you look at privacy today, maybe compared to where it was 6 months ago, a year ago, it's just a little bit more, right? Well, if you look at the privacy we had 20, 30, 40 years ago, That's a huge difference. And I think a lot of this with ID checks for the internet, everything that we're starting to do, that shifting baseline is accelerating quite a bit. It came across my desk just this morning, minutes before we started talking, that the Institute of Justice will be introducing an act called the PEEPS Act, which I think is kind of funny, but it's protecting everyone from excessive police surveillance. So definitely I'll be keeping an eye on that, but it includes a warrant requirement and then restricting that data location from third parties. So that's kind of exciting to see that coming out. Now, I want to talk to you. Yesterday, you were at an event.
Jen, can I just add something
sure.
to that?
Sure.
So one of the things so FISA, by the way, has been expired and lapsed literally now for 5 months with oddly enough, no major disasters, which is what they forecast. They said on day one, it's going to, the world is going to go to hell. And it didn't, So what we've got here is the workaround that the feds are doing is they will take these databases that are being put together by Flock and others. They will buy those databases because they don't, at the federal level, it's pretty clear, we've made pretty clear, you've got to have a warrant to kind of acquire this information. So they try to go around it by buying data from, whether it could be data from AT&T or T-Mobile or something like that. It could be from Flock, whatever. They're going to buy data to get around the Fourth Amendment at the federal level. I'm talking federal level here right now. But anyway, so this is an interesting development. I'll have to read that bill.
So when this came to me this morning in the email, it specifically said that Colorado and Arizona are the two main states that they are going to target with this PEEPS Act. Why Arizona?
Because you're seeing, because we've already had some abuses by some police officers. And I think, by and large, you can trust 99% of the police officers. You will have occasionally one or two or whatever that are going to engage in misconduct, but by and large, everybody they will live within it. They want to live by the rules, regs. They just need to know what they are. And I think that they want that the IJ is coming to Arizona probably because the public in Arizona by almost 70-30 is and across all political lines opposes the Flock cameras right now. And so this is probably why they're going to come here.
I interviewed a gentleman from New York about Flock cameras about a year ago. And he said in the interview, he goes, I'm a lefty. And he goes, but this is the one issue that unites us all. And I think we're seeing that here in Arizona too, that this might just be the one issue that most people can agree on.
Look, by the way, including many police officers and many leaders of police agencies.
So I want to talk to you about education. I think that there will be a great consequence if you are not elected into office, and that will be with school choice. And I think that there is some concern here with a lot of the folks who believe in school choice. Do you see there needing to be reform with empowerment scholarship accounts, with ESA? What are your thoughts on this? And maybe we can talk a little bit about the event you attended yesterday with Secretary McMahon in that. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so yesterday, Secretary McMahon was in town, and Speaker Montenegro and Superintendent Shelley Boggs and myself accompanied her on a tour of EVIT, East Valley Institute of Technology. And there were two really important takeaways there. Number one, and this is something that's part of my platform, and that is to make sure that there is opportunity for students in high school to become, if possible, certificated or basically receive the authorization, whatever you want to call their certifications, so they can get out into a trade if that's their choice. So they can actually, right out of high school, begin living the American dream, get on the ladder itself of upward mobility, and enjoy a profession that they really want to get into. We need people to fill those trades, whether it's welding. Welding is going to be hugely in demand, but you need firefighters, of course, and you need framers and plumbers and all these HVAC, all these trades that really AI is not going to help you with. It's going to take these skills. So that's takeaway one, is that we need to focus on that. Takeaway two is we have to protect school choice. Arizona is the leader in school choice and actually has been in this country for decades. And that we have a governor who is opposed to school choice. She's opposed to parental freedom for education. So for instance, right now in the bill that we passed a year ago, there is money. It's not even money. It's just a tax credit available. It's private money. If individuals contribute money to basically an SGO, what do we call a student governing organization or something like that, akin to an STO in the TSA program. Our ESA program. I don't want to say TSA, in the ESA program. So what happens is that money, up to $1,700, can go to students, and it's everything from tutoring, if they have special needs, if it's, it's a very broad-based use of funding for school choice. And the only thing that has to happen is Governor Hobbs has to sign the legislation. And she's had 3 opportunities. One was in a standalone bill. 2 were in the budgets that actually had the no tax on tips that she vetoed. She vetoed all 3 of those bills. But I mean, that's all she has to do. And if she does it, it will actually compound or magnify what Arizona does with ESAs and other school choice programs. But she refuses to do it because she doesn't like school choice. She's beholden to the unions, Jen.
We could probably talk for hours on that topic, but
Yes, I think we could.
So I want to talk to you about children and AI. In full disclosure here, I am part of a new national organization now called Protecting Kids Online. And you, of the 9 Arizona votes, you were one of 7 that voted no against the KIDS Act. And with Protecting Kids Online, we are trying to educate parents about they have the power already to control their children's, what they're doing online. That they're, first of all, it's the parent who's giving the device to the child. But second of all, there are all kinds of controls in place. And so that's kind of where we're coming from, is to remind the parents that they are the firewall. What is your thought about ID checks to get onto the internet, to use apps, and this push now for controlling age verification for children?
Oh, wow. That's a big one, because I believe that parents, I think most of the parents I talk to, I get out and talk to parents, they realize 2 things. Number 1, they need to be more involved. Number 2, they believe, many of them, that no matter how much they're involved, their kid can actually go around them, which is true largely. But I think if there's anything that we're calling adult content, then I don't have a problem with an age verification, simply because we would do with adult content in the rest of our lives. You would have an age verification ID, whether you're going to go buy liquor, whether you're going to go to a nightclub, whatever we do. Would require some kind of identification. So I think that's not a problem. I think we have additional problems, though, that I don't want anybody to minimize. So I struggled with the Kids Act because I just didn't think it was not crafted very well, massive unintended consequences. Nobody could answer questions that people were asking, very serious questions, because this is a serious issue. A bill that I introduced called C-Safe, and I'll give you an example of how this is happening. And you are having AI generated or adult generated exploitation of minors. So what they'll do is they will create this online relationship with a minor, a child, and that child then does things that they would be embarrassed of if the world knew about, particularly their parents, their friends. But now they can be exploited because they've given it. They can be blackmailed essentially, and so these bad actors, they may be other students. They will have that student, that young person, blackmail and exploit other young people, their friends, their classmates, and they will be blackmailed into doing heinous things. So they will get crushing. So you get videos that you see of crushing, which is horrible. And then and they've even persuaded these kids to kill themselves or kill others. We couldn't prosecute that. We're having trouble prosecuting those because you have this person blackmailing this person, and then you had another person over here who was another victim. So I introduced a bill called C-Safe after I worked with federal law enforcement on how do you deal with this. And we spent literally months and months trying to get the language right because we're very concerned about unintended consequences, but we also want to make sure that we can protect children. So that's something, and so that bill passed unanimously, bipartisan support. It's sitting in the Senate now, where all good bills go to die, apparently. And so we have a great sponsor, Kennedy, from Louisiana. Senator Kennedy is sponsoring it. The reason I'm raising that is the ubiquity of online opportunities to exploit and do harm is so dangerous. And I think even the most vigilant parent's going to have trouble a bit. And so we come back to my first statement. Anything that is adult activity, or that even though I think a lot of it is so wrong, it's immature, it's morally immature, and really isn't adult activity, but we call it adult activity. I'm okay with actually identification of it. That's a long way to get around to that point, but that's where I'm trying to get at.
When it comes to banking, if you were Arizona's governor, what kind of leadership would you have on that CBDC? Where do you stand on that?
Well, the House Freedom Caucus in Congress has fought CBDC for years, and we actually extracted from the White House and from the Speaker of the House that every must-pass legislation would have an anti-CBDC clause on it for the last 2 years. They broke that promise. It hasn't happened, but we are and I am anti-CBDC.
When we talk about CBDC, it is the last leg of the stool of surveillance. If CBDC were to become a reality, with the mass surveillance that is in FISA right now, guess what? It wouldn't be too long before we start looking like our main foe internationally, the Chinese, where they surveil everything. You know what? The UK surveils everything as well. They watch everything. And what CBDC would do would allow them to shut down the entire banking system or your micro banking system and control you. It can be abused so quickly, so thoroughly, so completely.
As we are starting to run out of time, and I still have another 5 pages of questions to go. So I might have to have you on.
I'm long-winded, Jen. I'm sorry.
No, I just have a lot of questions. How would you unite a divided Arizona? I mean, and this isn't just Arizona. Our country is really divided right now, and we're looking at losing a lot of Republican seats here in this next election. So if you had to make your pitch to Arizona, how would you bring the people together? What would leadership look like with you at the helm?
So here's what I think is really important. I think there's policy and procedural and transparency and communication issues. So on the transparent communication side, I think I was actually making a list. I've actually put out an ethics platform that iterates all the transparency. So for instance, the protocol fund. It seems to me that is a ripe for corruption, oddly enough. And so maybe what needs to happen is when money comes into that protocol fund, if you have one, and I'm not sure that we necessarily even need one, but if you have one, you have to disclose on the internet within so many hours, 48 hours, who gave you the money, how much money they gave, and when you spend it, how much money you spent, and what you spent it on. So if it's going to Mexico City to watch a Diamondbacks baseball game, you would say, I received this amount of money this is how I spent it going down to Mexico City. I went to, and I had some great margaritas or whatever you did down there in Mexico City. And that seems to me, those are the types of things that people would say, okay, we can actually trust this person or these people or this administration to actually tell us the truth because they're being so transparent on these financial things. So that would be one thing so on the transparency side. On the procedure side, this is important. I think procedurally you need somebody who knows what the process is and will actually get in and use the process and be very transparent about it. I've been very transparent about what we're going to do within the first 100 days of Andy Biggs being elected. And for me, the first 100 days doesn't start after you're sworn in. It starts the day after you get elected. And the day after you get elected, you're meeting with the legislators, the new leadership. You're looking at bills and you're getting them ready to pre-file those bills, and then away you go. And if you're gonna, let's say that I was going to veto a bill, which I can't imagine because we're going to have a Republican majority and we're going to work together. Let's say you were going to veto a bill like Katie Hobbs does. Would you throw 7 bills into a veto letter and say, not ready for prime time, whatever she said? I mean, these are just some of the most Valley Girl type of explanations on why you oppose a bill or vetoed a bill. It seems to me that you have to, I mean, look, we were talking about a bill that I voted on 25,000 some odd bills ago, and I could give you a rough outline at least of what I thought were the issues. She can't do that. So you need somebody who procedurally can actually keep faith with the people also. And then the third thing is policy. I think you tell the people what you're going to do, and then you do what you told the people you're going to do. And quite frankly, everybody in this state wants us to be more affordable. We want to have public safety and border security. You want to have a good education system, for Pete's sakes. You want somebody who's sitting at the table negotiating with the Bureau of Reclamation on water issues that doesn't need an Apple iPad to welcome Buc-ee's to Arizona. I mean, this is what you need. You need somebody who actually knows water law and can sit down on the policy itself and say, we're going to fight for every drop of water here, but then doesn't engender panic by saying, you know what, Arizona's out of water. We're not out of water. We have massive, copious amounts of underground water. So you need somebody who understands policy and will deliver on that policy. And as we stabilize our economy, as people feel freer, because that's what happens when people aren't questioning whether they need to fill up the tank of gas or do something, buy bread or something. When that comes and that's stabilized, all of a sudden the whole state can come together. And an example of that, I want to give you what I consider the great example is it started under Rick Scott in Florida, where he came in and he said, well, this is what we're going to do. And he stabilized their economy. And so what happened is people started turning red. They started saying, we like this. And then under Ron DeSantis, Ron took it the next step. And what happened? that state is 70-30 Republican now. And then under the next guy, which is going to be Byron Donalds, Byron's going to continue on that path and that program. Because when there's prosperity and there's freedom and there's protection and safety and people know their kids can get a good education, you know what happens? That unites the state. It unites the state. There's going to be little snippets of the hard left. And the other thing is you have to always be honest. You have to say, like Katie Hobbs not being honest about me. Here, I'm going to be honest about here. We're just going to talk about her record. I don't need to talk about her personality. I don't need to make these outlandish claims, even though I could, because there's a lot there. I'm not going to come in and say, she had, on transgenderism, for instance. I'm not going to say she's like Gavin Newsom. We'll let the people decide if that's the case. But she supports transgenderism. She supports boys and girls bathrooms. She supports boys and girls sports. All of those things are fair game, I believe, because you know what? Those are policies that she's embraced. And that's how I think you bring people together. And you don't do it like a rancorous person. You don't sit there vacuous and staring off into space while you're at a forum that's designed to protect you. It's unbelievable to me. It's still, right back to where we started, Jen. It's like, that's how you do not unite people by saying outrageous things that you're not true. Can I touch on one thing about that? So last night, Jen, she said two things at the end of her speech when she was giving her closing argument that I thought were just absolutely outrageous. She said Andy Biggs got involved in this HCR 2040 thing, which would have destroyed police unions. Well, that's not true, number one. Number two, then she said Andy Biggs was at DC jails greeting J6 prisoners who received a pardon. Andy Biggs was there greeting them as they came out. I'm like, I have no idea where that even came from. That's one of the most ludicrous things I've ever heard. And I'm like, at some point, and she says, I want to raise taxes 23%. You start going, she says she lowered utility costs in Arizona. Those are the things that don't unite Arizona. They don't unite people because people say, that's so over the top outrageous. No, I don't know anybody whose utility bill's gone down since Katie Hobbs became governor, So you have to be trustworthy. You have to say, this is what I did. I mean, like I'm trying to on a couple of these ancient bills. This is what I remember. I don't remember much more than that, but this is what I think we did. This is why I did it, I think. But you have to try to be honest. At least try to be honest, Katie. That's all I'm asking.
I really would like to have you back on. I would love to have you back on in the future because I want to ask you about water. I want to ask you about utility. I want to ask you about Casey Murph, the cattle rancher who's trying to fight for his grazing allotments right now. We still have so much to talk about, but I know time is running out. And so I want to ask you my hardest and my final question. I ask everybody this question, and that is, are you happy?
Yeah, I am actually very happy. I'm a happy person. I'm a happy warrior. It's like I told my wife, the only time I've been upset with Katie Hobbs, she's been lying at me for a while, but the only time I got upset is when she said that 23, although, the J6er thing's kind of weird, but because that's like out of left field. But the 23% tax thing, I told her, doggone it, anybody who's known me for 20 years, they know that I've never voted for tax increase. I had somebody send me saying, Andy, you, more than any other legislator in world history, you have voted for more tax relief than anybody else. That's the one I told my wife I was mad at. But I'm happy. We're healthy reasonably. We live in a good place, in a good time. It's a struggle. There's a lot of things that provide challenges, but we are happy. And I've got a great family. I've got great friends, and the campaign trail's been great. The meeting people like you, Jen, that's been really super. And so I'm really happy. I'll be happier to be out of Congress because it's a bit of a pain in the neck from time to time, but it is what it is. You just keep going, keep doing what you're doing, what you believe is right. That'll make you happy. Trust in God. Trust in God.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to having you on again so we can talk about more topics. But best wishes to you. Stay in touch. And thank you for all that you do.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it. You take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.